What is up? The pigs are back for another episode of The Blind Pig, courtesy of BGObsession.com. Boys, it is a pleasure to see you, but before we get into all of the details, we'll run down the particulars. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back. Give us a like and a follow. If you have never been here before, you can also catch us on all major audio platforms and stream us on youtube.com under our moniker of BGObsession.com. And always, the last thing I have to say is please join us on our home website, message board, old school discussion style, bgobsession.com. So, John and Mark, I have to say, you guys clearly picked the worst game of the year to go to and see in person because there was nothing fun that happened other than maybe one or two plays. So, before we get into the analysis, absolutely, I have to say, obviously, the play of the year, the play of the decade, probably just happened. One of those miracle at midnight style plays against Dallas when Santana Moss caught 2 touchdowns. The Sean Taylor fumble recovery against the Cowboys to return it with a face mask in a game-ending field goal. Very few walk-off victories have we witnessed, especially in our home stadium. So to see that kind of thing happen, we have not been privy to. So, guys, I will shut up and listen. I want to hear, what was it like to see it live and in person? Because I am so envious that I didn't get to witness it myself.
Well, I'm going to let Mark talk about the actual play. But one thing, I don't know if you could tell on TV, but I swear at least 25% of the fans at that game were Chicago fans. I started out thinking maybe 10%, but the more I watched and saw and heard the fans, they had an incredible representation at that game. And I don't know if you could hear it on TV, but when they took the lead, they were chanting, "Let's go Bears." It sounded like it was in Chicago. It was really loud, and it was kind of beautiful in a way because they were all very happy and mocking us, and a lot of them were, and then it changed. So I'll let Mark talk about the actual play.
I didn't think the numbers were quite what John was saying. I thought I would go with 15%, but so I will say this about the Bear fans that I saw, nobody was an asshole. They were just having fun and being loud, but they did get kind of cocky when after 59 and a half minutes of getting their ass kicked all night, they suddenly get a lead, right? And they're all brave and chatty at that point, and a little bit chesty. And then the play happens, right? We can go through the details of it, but the play happens, and I'm watching this one guy who's 3 or 4 seats down who had been all rational during the game. We're here for the long haul. And I tried to make eye contact with him as Bear fans started putting their heads down and filing out. And he was just kind of doing one of these things. He would not look at me. And the Bears fans on the way out, walking down, if you guys have been up at the top levels of FedEx Field, you walk down 87 fucking ramps going down out of the stadium. You're back and forth seeing the same Bears fans, right? You're going down one level, they're coming down the next, and you see them like 6 times. And nobody was making eye contact at that point. So that was all. It's kind of surreal, guys. You saw it on TV, and it was surreal on TV. In the stadium, I don't really think there are words to describe it. There were a lot of fans, including some of the people that John and I went with, who were telling me tonight, Gary and Leslie, my friends who are hosting me in this sweet house that I'm staying in, they were both there. They're both, kind of football fans, but they're not like we are. They're not obsessed like we are with the burgundy and gold. And they both admitted that, we were actually sitting down when the play happened because we thought the game was over. And then everything just erupted, and they're trying to figure out what went on. So
the one thing about being there that you guys probably couldn't appreciate until later on social media, but we were on that end of the field, so we had a great view of the end zone. And when Stevenson was over there, yakking and Mark and I were like going, "What's that guy doing, man?" And you could see Bears fans behind him in the end zone screaming at him like, "The play started! The play started!" Really obvious that like what a bonehead play that was if you were there watching it, because it was clear that everyone else was playing the actual play and he was still over there screwing around. So kind of a crazy thing.
I'd be kind of interested in hearing each of the three other of you guys who was watching this thing on TV. I know you all thought it was over too. Were you watching live? And please tell me you lost fingers in the ceiling fan.
I'll say first to your original point, John. Yes, we could hear the Bears fans. I can say unequivocally I could hear them on TV, which was kind of surprising because of how loud it was at other aspects. So you could definitely tell that there was a burgundy and gold fandom there. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like in years past where it was quiet when we were on defense and the opposite on offense, but you could hear
Derek, I just want to mention one thing. I wasn't saying it. Please don't anyone listening think I'm like saying, oh, the Washington fans.
Right.
I'm sure it's the Caleb Williams effect. They're excited about. I mean, we know it is because we talked to a lot of Bears fans. They're just as excited about Caleb Williams. Maybe not just as excited, but they're very excited to have a quarterback and some hope for the future. So I'm sure
from the area.
I'm sure that was a big factor in how many fans were there.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. But to your yes, we could hear it. It was evident on TV. Now it was nowhere near what we've heard in years past, but you could hear it on television. But as far as the game, like that final play, I think all three of us were in chat when it actually happened. I had stepped away a little bit because I have Xfinity, which is just hot garbage. So I'm usually about 20 seconds behind everything. So I had minimized it. I can tell you this. I had a football in my hand, and I spiked it hard enough that it hit my ceiling when it happened, and I screamed in a way I haven't screamed in a long time. It was borderline the shriek of waking up in the middle of the night with a spider on your forehead. Like that kind of that terrifying, oh my God, that just happened moment. But that was a wild thing, and we were all watching it, and I think the chat was flooded as soon as it went down, just of sheer just elation, unlike we've seen in a long time.
Yeah,
I
it was
thought
awesome.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. So like that last drive, I was a little, obviously I was like, I wasn't expecting much. I was down. My daughter said before the Hail Mary, she said, "Dad, they can do a miracle. They're gonna win." She said that, so I was like, okay. And then when it happened, I lost my S. I was running around, high-fiving, and just running around screaming, and we were going nuts. And my dog, it was funny. He was just really confused. He was staring. He was like, what are you doing? But it was just pandemonium. We were just so excited.
How did it play up in Canada, T?
Let's put it this way.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Sorry, I haven't gone a while.
No, it's all good. Let's put it this way. I'm pretty certain that people in the United States were able to hear me if they had their windows open.
I did. That was you.
Okay. I don't know what to say. For me, probably the single greatest moment in being a Redskins fan, Commanders fan, whatever you want to call it, in the last 32 years. I think it's the biggest moment in our last 32 years because of everything that it represents. For me, it represents bye-bye Dan Snyder, get rid of those demons, get rid of those ghosts. It's a new era, the dawn of a new era. There's so much hope with Jaden Daniels, and I think that this is going to be one of those moments, hopefully a few years down the road, where we look back and we say that was the moment where it all changed. That was the turning point. That was the rallying point for this franchise upon which we built a consistent winner. I think that all teams that become championship caliber have to have those types of moments. Those signature wins, those signature gut check games that really, really rally the team. And I think that this can be a huge, huge moment for this franchise moving forward. I was I was beyond thrilled. I was beyond elated. I can't tell you how happy I am today. It's those kinds of games and those kinds of moments that remind you why people like us have gone through the suffering that we have for so many years. This is what sports is all about, right? And this is why we cheer. This is why we suffer as fans. This is why we endure Dan Snyder for these types of things.
The
Amen.
only game that I would say was rivaled this one, and I say rivaled, not was better, but the Monday Night Miracle when Brunel hit Santana twice for touchdowns, that was kind of the same feeling, just not as dramatic because obviously we had to go back out there on defense in that game and keep Dallas from retaking the lead. And we did, but that's really the only game that comes to mind that I think even was in the same universe as what we saw on Monday nights, and just incredible.
I join. I agree with that. That was my reference to losing fingers in the ceiling fans. By the way, I lost like 2 fingertips to a ceiling fan that night because I'm up on the couch dancing, trying not to scream because my young children are asleep upstairs. But I do the only other moment I can think of that compares, and it goes to what Paul was just saying about it's not just a win. A big win is exciting. I mean, the Sean Taylor blocked kick return and field goal was big. That was a monster win. What was cathartic about this one for me is it represents everything that Paul was talking about, the culture change and the fact that we are, oh, excuse me, I'm having bourbon delivered.
Nice.
I have good friends. That's Gary who's hosting me here and drove us to the stadium.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother Gary. The cathartic part of it, the only thing I can compare it to was the return of Gibbs, the return of the King, and there was all that build up that off season, and we trade Champ Bailey, perhaps our most popular and Pro Bowl level player, for a running back from Denver. And he shows up, and in the very first game on his first carry and Joe Gibbs' first game back, Clinton Portis breaks off that 60, 70-yard touchdown run. That's the last time I can remember feeling that. I mean, everything churns up and the emotions well up. I mean, I'm 64 years old now, and I'm standing there in the stadium Sunday, and I've lost control, right? And I got tears streaming down my face. John is grabbing me and shaking me. My son, who is 32 now and has never known anything resembling the feeling that we had that night, is like looking at me with tears in his eyes. I know it's a little bit silly on some level, but it's so real. And I have not felt that since that Clinton Portis moment. And before that, I'm going back to winning Super Bowls. This was a big deal on Sunday.
I must have a little bit of Nostradamus in me, though, because the very first game I went to in the FedEx Field era was the Joe Gibbs return. The very first play I ever saw live at a regular season Washington game was the Clinton Portis touchdown run.
That's and then the one.
I only go to one game a year typically. So what a game. Mark, hats off to Mark for picking the Chicago game as the one we were going to go to.
Oh, I forgot something.
The hat's got to be backwards, brother.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way, I don't know if this is going to translate, but when you go shopping with your daughter, shit like this happens.
That's awesome, by the way.
Oh, nice.
That is fantastic.
So I'm ready, man. I'm ready for whatever comes next.
So I guess that's a good segue to actually kind of let's dig a little bit into the game. Obviously, at the end of the day, I think I'm not going to try to forecast this too much, but I will say that this is the kind of game that you find a way to win, right? Like, we dominated 57 and a half minutes of that game. Chicago had their way for one drive, to get to the point where they took over the lead, where the defense had been kind of exposed a little bit for two consecutive drives. There was a lot going on in the second half of that fourth quarter. Caleb looked good. I'll give him credit. He looked really good on those last 2 drives. I think Chicago did enough to lose the game as much as we did to win, just being objective. Because why the hell do you hand it off to your backup guard on in the goal to go situation? But these are the kind of games that teams that look back on a season that say that one was special, and I'm not going to elaborate on how special, but when they look back and say that one was special, these are the kind of games that you find a way to win, right?
Yep.
You weren't supposed. We dominated the game. We should have won the game for all intents and purposes. We had 4 red zone drives and came away with 12 points. That could have easily been 24-0. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Chicago's got a really good red zone defense. There's a lot that went into this game. We gave up the lead late. The team found a way to rally back and end up winning it with 2 massive plays with less than 30 seconds to go. But looking at this team, that game was less than perfect, but Jaden Daniels had his first 300-yard passing game and had one of the biggest plays in team history. So it's just kind of one of those deals that you look back and say, you know what? We got the win. I'll take it. I'm not going to – I don't want to be too critical about any aspect. I'm not going to be too glowing about any aspect. You just be glad you got the win and enjoy the moment.
I think you saw the difference in 2 coaching staffs in that game, because when push came to shove, our guys did what it took, and the Bears made crucial mistakes. How Chicago's coaches let that second to last play happen, that sideline, that out route unguarded to get us even to where Hail Mary was possible. That was like coaching malpractice. Just, I don't know. I thought there were some seriously questionable Bears coaching decisions. And just, again, we didn't have anyone doing something stupid on a critical play, that really hurt us like the Bears did on the last play of the game. So I just thought we were. And the other thing I'll say, and I know Mark has a lot to say about Caleb Williams and about how Jaden played, but Caleb Williams looked really shaky for most of that game. Like, he looked unsure of himself. He didn't look like he could read the defense that we were throwing at him. And I mean, I was kind of surprised, because I said last week that I thought he would come out there and be slinging it all over the place, trying to show that he was the number 1 draft pick for a reason. And to me, it was, I mean, even though Jaden was not 100% Jaden, he looked like the guy that the savvy guy that has all the poise and has a command of the field and all of that, not Caleb Williams.
What I saw from Caleb is what I think a lot of the pre-draft stuff was about. And when we all talked about it, the distinction we kind of all made was that he doesn't look like a guy who's ready to play on schedule in the NFL as much as Jaden Daniels is. I think we saw that borne out. When things go off schedule and he's got to go sandlot and make a play, he's fucking scary, and he's hard to tackle, and he doesn't just gun it, right? When he gets out of traffic, he throws with touch, but he needs the play to break down for his magic to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think we saw that confirmed in this game. I think we also saw confirmed in our guy, and I'm trying to not go all hyperbole on Jaden Daniels, but here's a guy who I thought was clearly hurt. I said this to John half a dozen times during the game. Jaden ain't quite right. Who, on a day that the running game wasn't really dominating, on a day that Cliff Kingsbury was not calling RPOs to run Jaden Daniels wide and take advantage of that, he asked Jaden Daniels to be a pocket passer 8 games into his NFL career against, I believe, the number 2 defense in football coming into this game. Jaden Daniels dropped back, read the defense, and threw strikes pretty much all night. It looked better on replay than it did in the stadium. In the stadium, I kept saying, well, that pass was a little bit off. He's not quite right. I watched the thing twice on replay, the condensed in the last 2 days, and the kid is dialing it up with a bad rib, just throwing from the pocket. So he is light years ahead of where Caleb is. As dangerous as Caleb is, our guy is just on a different level right now. And I think that really showed on Sunday.
we had 481 net yards of offense, which is the highest total of the season, and that was the first game where Jaden threw for more than 300 yards, and that was with the rib. I mean, that's just crazy.
And several drops.
Yeah.
Not to mention just several drops. He had 2 touchdowns called. Well, a long play on a screen to a Zacchaeus and a touchdown. No, long play on a screen to. Oh, the touchdown was to Zacchaeus. They called
Zacchaeus. The long one was on
Deami
Brown's, the one you're talking
about.
about.
Deami Brown screenplay, yeah, which would have been another 50 to 60 yards. And both of those were questionable callbacks, by the way. The one to Zacchaeus, I don't know if you guys saw it in the stadium, but it had absolutely no effect on the play. He was not even in contact with anybody on the field, and he was a half a step beyond a yard. And even the announcers were like, "Well, it's the rule." They need to look at that. Look, just bitching for the sake of bitching, it meant nothing to the outcome of that play. So why is that even a factor? It was not even, and he should have. It had nothing to do with Zacchaeus scoring. So you take, again, 2 massive explosive plays off the board, which would have turned one of those field goals into a touchdown, at least one. The other one would have put us down at like the 5-yard line instead of kicking a field goal from the 20. Mm-hmm. So it was big changes.
That could have been a touchdown.
The Ertz catch,
yeah.
Yes, I wrote down 6 different plays or 7 different plays that happened in that game that kept it from being like a 21 or 24 to nothing game going into the fourth quarter, in which case none of the dramatics with Jaden are necessary on that last play. There was the Ertz TD that wasn't. You could argue whether or not the replay should have overturned it. Normally, Ertz makes that catch, and it's a touchdown. So the Bears get a break there. No, I've not heard anybody talk about this play. Caleb is getting tackled in the end zone for a safety and throws what to me is a clear ground. He doesn't throw it to anybody. He throws it towards the line of scrimmage. I think the nearest guy is the guy wearing a lineman number. It should have been a safety. That wasn't called. They got away with Luke missing by 1 toe a touchdown catch in the end zone. He gets 1 toe down, not 2.
Which by the way was blatantly Jaden throwing it away and just putting it where his guy might have a shot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw the replays in stadium, but like that was clear that Jaden was like, you know what, I'm gonna drop this thing on the pylon, and if Luke can make a play, then he can make a play. Otherwise, no, and it could not have been any better. I mean, it could not have been a better throw.
So I guess major point being that the Bears were kind of fortunate to even be in that game. This was a pretty good football team that we went in against, right? Everyone's there, the hot team in the NFC, whatever they're in. They have a top defense. They got Caleb. They got all these playmakers. And Washington, with an injured quarterback, just sort of dominated all but the last 2 minutes of regular time. And that I'm still trying to figure out what that really means.
The entire game.
Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, the entire game, to piggyback off of Mark's point and what he was trying to get to, I think, is it was a major exercise in resiliency for this team. There was absolutely no way that you would have thought that this team would have won this game at any point in the last 10, 15 years. We always knew how this game was going to play out. But, adversity struck us multiple times in this game, but we somehow found a way to claw back into it. And I think it just points to the great job that the coaches are doing with these players. And again, it was an exercise in resiliency. And I think it alluded to the fact that this team might be a little bit more mature than we think they are. And I think that that's a great sign for this team and for this group moving forward.
So there's a segment of the fan base that cannot get over the idea that this is a bad defense. It's like the constant refrain, like we were bad. We had bad defenses when Jack Del Rio was here, and now we've got a bad defense with Joe Witt Jr. We do not have a bad defense. We just a couple of nuggets. We've held 2 teams scoreless for an entire half, 2 games in a row now. That hasn't happened since 1997. That's hard to do in the NFL. Oh, and by the way, we scored in every quarter again, which we've done repeatedly this year. The other thing we did is we held Chicago to 2 conversions out of 12 attempts on third down. 2 for 12 we held them to. And I know Kevin Sheehan, I know you guys have been doing what I've been doing. I've been listening to every talking head. I just want to roll around in the wind and experience it over and over again.
Yeah.
I listened to it all the way from Northern Virginia back down to North Carolina, and I listened to it again today for most of the day. But Kevin Sheehan pointed out until 10 minutes left in the game, Caleb Williams had 4 completions for like 40-some yards.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams. So I think those fans, and we got a couple of them on our website, and we love you, but you need to stop saying it. We do not have a bad defense. We have a defense that's playing its ass off. We may not have a bunch of superstars.
And we talked about that in chat. Is the implosion talk started happening, and then it was like everybody was losing their mind when in reality it was one explosive play by DeAndre Swift that even made that game interesting.
And also on that one, not to blame the refs, but there was a blatant the guy tackled Quan Martin, who was coming up to make the tackle on that too.
So I had a little pushback again for you, John. I feel you, and I've continued to kind of have that stance that we've talked about this on this very podcast. That this team, at a minimum, is nowhere near what it was week 1 and week 2. Right? So let's say we don't have an elite defense. I would agree we don't have an elite defense. Week 1, we were the worst ranked defense in the league. Week 2, we were not far behind that. Now we're 14th in scoring and 14th in yards and 10th in scoring, if I'm remembering correctly. So at a minimum, you have to tip of the hat and say, you know what? They're gelling. They're playing together. Things are progressing the right way over the course of a season when it's the first time they played in this defense. Sorry, not to get too loud.
Yeah.
No. Give it up. Let it fly. No, what I remember talking on this podcast at the beginning of the season saying, I think if there's one fatal flaw that the 2024 Commanders are going to have is that they don't generate a pass rush, and that's going to be the Achilles heel. I mean, I remember saying it. I believed it. And now I'm looking at the defense that is willing to make dangerous blitz calls. They're kind of what Joe Witt promised us at the beginning. I don't know if he changed his mind and philosophy with this group, or he just found the right combination of guys with this group. But he's sending people from angles. He is being aggressive. We may give up a 6 or 7 yard run on first down and say, oh shit, we can't defend the run. But then on the next play, we're dialing up a run blitz that works and throwing them for a 2 or 3 yard loss. And all of a sudden you got a 3rd and long. I think we're getting exactly what they promised us with this group, that they may not be the most talented. We're missing some blue chip guys, right? We don't have a stud CB1. We don't have a stud edge. But what we got is 11 guys who on every single play all of a sudden seem to know what the other guy's doing, and they're playing off of each other and they're buying in. They're not, I don't think anyone's saying they're elite, but to say at this point that this defense hasn't gone from, oh my God, we're not going to win a game, to what did we say going into the season? If we are just a mid-level defense, well, we're at least a mid-level defense at this point, going against NFL competition week after week. Okay, maybe Mahomes would shred us, but he's Mahomes. He shreds everybody. I am thrilled and surprised and really kind of excited about what Witt's done in half a season. By the end of the season, I think these guys, if they keep going the way they're going, we're going to be a pretty dangerous, a pretty tough out.
They're getting a lot of protections from guys that we were kind of writing off. Phil Mathis is playing really well. Quan Martin led the team in tackles on Sunday evening with 10 tackles.
Johnny Newton is playing like a man on fire.
Johnny Newton is the other guy, yeah. So,
and then specifically this game, the Bears had an extra week to prepare. All we heard going into the season was no rookies ever walked into such a great position as the Bears, as Caleb Williams. You know, they got 3 number 1 receivers. Cole Kmet's a good tight end. Swift's a good back. You hold them to 15 points. I mean, there's not much else you could ask for the defense. You know, they got a turnover too. So yeah, they've just been ascending each game. It seems like they're getting better and better, and they're starting to figure things out. And then specifically this game, it's such a potent offense that had been playing well the weeks prior. You know, they really put it together.
No, man, I couldn't be more excited about the way the defense is progressing. We talk about Jaden every week, and the offense has been kind of rolling since week 2. But all of a sudden, the defense week to week, I'm kind of expecting them to come up and shut people down, and they're not ripping the ball out to the extent that I think Joe Witt would like them to. But we're getting how many stops did we get in this game? A half a dozen. I think going into the game, Logan Paulson was saying we need to get like 3 stops, and he was expecting us to have to outscore the Bears 35-30. And here we are in a defensive struggle. Hello. And our defense was arguably the better of the 2 on the field.
I don't think it was arguable. Did you see the halftime stats?
30
I
something.
think
Yeah.
I think it was. We had them almost 4-1 statistically speaking. I believe we had more rushing yards in our first drive than they had total yards in their entire first half. Like,
I would love to know what Cliff said. You know, we talked last week about Cliff knowing Caleb Williams better than anybody, and I would love to have heard somebody ask him that question, like, what kinds of things did you talk to Joe Witt Jr. about? Because it certainly looked like I mean, I'm not a savvy enough analyst to watch the game and, you know, figure out why does Caleb Williams look so shaky and why isn't he delivering the ball on time and on target. And but obviously we were as prepared for him as you could possibly be. So I wish someone would ask him that question. I don't know what he would say. He might say, well, yeah, you have to ask Joe Witt about that. But I would love to hear his answer. Like, if what we saw was a direct influence of him having that knowledge of Williams.
One of the analysts I heard suggested that the Bears were asking Caleb to do far too much reading and changing of signals at the lines and to be a thinking quarterback way too much. And I think that's probably true. He's not there yet. He's not able or interested in doing that yet. When it turned into, I think I was saying earlier, when it turned into a sandlot game at the end, like it's fourth quarter and go make it happen, then he became Caleb Williams. Their challenge in Chicago is going to be to see if they can find a balance between an on-schedule guy and the complete like magic man that he is when shit breaks down and he starts running around. You don't want to face that guy. You want to face the guy who's standing in the pocket trying to read his third option, because I don't think that's Caleb.
Yeah,
go ahead, Derek. Sorry.
I was gonna say I heard some people talking about it today with Caleb, and like, why the hell are you asking your rookie quarterback to come to the line, read the defense, and then make the adjustment call at the line of scrimmage? It said it would take 2 to 3 plays for Witt and anybody competent enough to look at that and say, all right, well, now we're just not going to show. We're going to disguise everything. If we're going to show a blitz, we're going to back off. And sometimes we'll blitz, sometimes like you completely take it out of the hands of the quarterback at that point, because everything they're doing is reactive instead of proactive.
It's like, who do they think he is? Jaden Daniels?
Right. Well,
Hey, I wanted to, you know, every week we've been talking about this season, and I guess this is how you know it's a special season, is that we're breaking a record every single weekend that we play, like long-standing records. This in the Bears game, Jaden became the second quarterback in franchise history to have 400 plus rushing yards in a single season. It's week 9. That's incredible. I mean, that's just unbelievable, especially when you look at Robert Griffin, you know, what he did. I also wanted to mention that Terry McLaurin broke 2 records on Sunday night. He passed Ricky Sanders for 7th on the all-time receiving yards list.
Hold on, time out. Before you go, 7th. This guy is 7th. He is only the second year into his second contract, and he's 7th
Yeah.
in the good franchise history in receiving yards. Sorry.
And he also broke Ricky Sanders, passed him on the list of most career receptions. He's now 6th. So pretty crazy. I'm so happy for McLaurin, man. McLaurin averaged 25 yards a catch. I think
Yeah, 5 for 125.
2 catches for 4 yards each or something. He's just on fire, man.
Yeah, I saw a stat. He's number 4 in receiving yards in the whole NFL right now.
Only at 579 through 8 games. Yeah.
And they're just getting warmed up, man. They're just getting warmed up. Jaden and Terry are getting to know each other. The timing is getting better. There's nowhere to go but up on this thing. I was trying to think ahead. If you're defending the Commanders right now, particularly like even next week, now that Caleb is going to be, presumably the read option is going to be back on the table and he's able to run again and they're not going to be protecting him. I don't know how I would try to draw up defending the Commanders offense right now. They can run it straight up. They can run misdirection stuff. They can go short quick. They go no huddle. They can go down the field. I think was it Orlovsky that was just saying they're covering all the offensive bases and you have to defend all of them. And I don't know how you do it.
Real quick to tie a bow on Terry, one other thing. If I look at the stat sheet that jumps off the page, when was the last time you heard this? I'm going to go week 1 to week 8, longest catch of the game. His longest catch, 11, 12, 55, 15, 66, 14, 25, 61. I bet you he already has more catches over 20 yards now than he's had in any of the last 5 seasons, right? Like, explosive plays, big time plays, and clutch plays to that point. Like you said earlier, Mark, with the out route at the play before the Hail Mary. You know what I mean? Like when
he
it
tried
mattered.
to catch that Hail Mary too.
He did. But to answer your question, Mark, I don't know how you defend him. I think you defend him because it's not like you can sit back and say, you know what, let's make Jaden beat us in the pocket. Let him throw his way out of it. Okay, fine. Do it. Please let that happen. You know what I mean? There's not really a good way to do it. The only way I guess I can think that I would defend him is I'm disguising things and I'm coming with heat. More often than not, I'm coming with 5 or 6, and I'm going to do it out of multiple sets, multiple formations, and I'm going to try to make it so it doesn't make sense. I'm going to drop a line, the old UFO defense that the Browns played. I'll drop a D tackle and bring 2 linebackers in their place. You know, just that kind of weird stuff to try to get them like, well, wait a minute, I didn't understand what was going on. But other than that, I don't know how you defend it. I don't know how I really don't.
And I guess you kind of hope that on those, because Jaden's shown several times this year already, that he's got that incredible quick twitch leg reaction thing where he'll just step around a guy and take off down the field. How many times did he do it in this game? Just in this game where they didn't call one RPO all night. He scrambled for key first downs repeatedly when they had him dead to rights.
He just freezes guys, man. He does that little hip shake and freezes them, and he's gone.
There was one play where he actually hopped over a guy in midfield. Somebody captured an image of him 36 inches off the deck, right? Just in this pose. And I know he's not going to be able to do that forever. So I was thinking about this earlier. The thing that's excited me most about the long-term future of this quarterback with this team is that he is not relying on his legs to be a legitimate big-time NFL quarterback. What he's showing me is his best attribute is seeing, reading, and delivering the football from the pocket. I mean, you can do that for the next 20 years. I don't need him to run 80 yards per game. It's nice when he can get first downs that way. But his ability to stand in the pocket and read and deliver, 8 games into his career is remarkable. And I'm going to shut up in a second, but I wanted to, before I forget to say, we keep thinking eventually defensive coordinators are going to figure this guy out. There's 8 weeks of film now, and people have had a chance to see going into this game What does Jaden do? How do we stop him? No one's even begin to figure it out yet. It'll happen eventually. He'll have bad games, but what he's doing to me is kind of defies belief in terms of his not the physical stuff so much as this stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too, John. Like there are certain tiers of players no one figures out. Like Mahomes, Josh Allen, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, those kind of guys. Like no one figures them out. They still, they're elite for a reason. So I think Jaden is on his way to that as well.
So, guys, anyone got anything else they want to say before we move on to week 9?
This is I'll oh, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead. You know what? Man of few words, all with impact. Go ahead, brother.
I think it would be a shame not to give a little tip of the hat to this offensive line. We thought coming into the season that this was going to be a great concern. There was a lot of talk about who we hired as our offensive line coach and whatnot, but some of those guys on the interior of the line, especially Tyler Biadasz, I mean, that guy is playing his butt off. These guys, I think, are as instrumental to Jaden Daniels' success this year as any other aspect. I mean, they're a try-hard group right now. We might not necessarily have elite talent on that line, but I mean, we're getting a pretty good bang for the buck this year with that group, and I hope it continues.
Particularly when you pass pro, right?
What was that, Mark?
I was going to say, particularly on pass pro. I know we're one of the better running teams, but we've had 2 games now where we couldn't run the ball at all. But the pass protection has not broken down. It's pretty remarkable. Who was the New York Giants offensive line coach we brought in that everybody was like, well, he sucked in New York?
Oh my gosh!
Right?
I had his name on
Johnson.
Bobby Johnson.
Yeah.
I almost said Danny Johnson. That's our old special teams coordinator.
But maybe Jaden makes them look good because he's so smooth rolling out and he never seems to panic. But my impression watching them play the last few weeks is Jaden takes the snap and he stands and scans the field. It's been a long time since we saw one of our quarterbacks doing that. It's pretty remarkable.
And he had 13 seconds to run around to make an incredible Hail Mary pass. 13 seconds. That's insane.
And to Paul's point, we were down to our 3rd left tackle too. So
yeah,
in that game.
Scott, right? Yeah.
Oh, on the Hail Mary, I know that what's his name, Stevenson, the cornerback from the Bears, who's like pointing at the fans and all that. I've gone back and looked at some of the replays that have the timer that show the real elapsed time of the play, and when he's pointing around, he got back into the play because Jaden ran around so long. Stevenson gets back in time to measure himself and jump and try to tip it away. What I also heard was that, unfortunately, that wasn't his job on that play. His assignment was to box out Noah Brown, and he decided to go try to make a play. And oops. I don't want to. What is it, John? With the soap in the bag, you give him a.
Oh yeah, a blanket party. Yeah,
blanket party. That's what that boy's getting in the locker room.
I mean, if I'm that guy, man, I'm just glad they don't cut me to make a point to the rest of the team. But that's unfortunate, man.
Well, boys, we do have a game coming up. And as fun as it is to talk about the elation we all shared in the last one, this actually, I think, could be more of an important game than we all want to actually understand at this point when we're at New York, right? I think they're not the same team we played in week 2. And they might not be great, but I do think that they are going to put up a dogfight, at least in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think.
I mean, every time we play the Giants, it's tougher than it probably should be, is how I always feel. We don't traditionally play well up there. It's a division game. So, I mean, I don't expect it to be a cakewalk. I guess where I take solace, and I can't remember who, I know Mark has said this. I think a couple of you guys have said it in different ways. But one of the things that Mark has said to me a couple of times already this year is that this team they're always ready. They don't come out flat. They have not come out flat once this season. And I don't expect them to come out flat. I mean, it would be that we talked about trap games a couple weeks ago, but it would be the most natural thing in the world. You know, you got the Giants coming off a short week, a tough loss, and we're coming off, you know, the greatest finish in franchise history. So it'd be a totally natural thing for us to take them lightly and to get our ass spanked or shocked. But I just don't think these coaches are going to let that happen.
Yeah,
I'm not saying we can't lose it, but it won't be because, you know, we go in there cocky and you know, not prepared.
Yeah, each week they seem to be prepared and, you know, ready to go. So if they lose, I don't think it's for lack of preparation and that type of thing. And I also think the offense is pissed too, because the first time they played the Giants, they couldn't punch it in the end zone. So I think they're eager to go back at them, even though the Giants have a good defensive front and a good, or seems like to be a good defense. And I think the thing that'll help us too is the Giants are coming off a short week in a really physical game too. So that plays to our advantage. But division games are always crazy and usually closer than you would think.
They have a terrible offense. They're 23rd, they're 26 overall in yards, 31st in scoring, and they're equally bad passing and defense. Like they're bad on offense. Daniel Jones is not playing that terrible. He's completing like almost 63% of his passes, but they're just not scoring much. And I don't know. I mean, they don't have a lot of. They've got good wide receivers. Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wandale Robinson, but I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. Maybe it's just Daniel Jones being Daniel Jones, but we should be able to hold the scoring to a minimum, I would think.
What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, there's not much that I can disagree with. I think ultimately it comes down to execution. If we come out, if we execute, if we don't give these guys a reason to believe, you know, it should be a game that you would think we can handle. But again, I don't think you want to play with fire and do what we did against Chicago last week, or do what we did against the Giants in week 2, where we let these guys stick around and hang around. Because, I mean, you know, as we saw last week, if you let it come down to the bitter end, I mean, anything can happen. So it comes down to execution. You know, scoring 7 is obviously going to be hugely important this week. You don't want to play with fire and settle for field goals all day. Provided we can do that, I like our chances.
Given what I've seen from the defense the last few weeks and the arc that they seem to be on in terms of improvement, I don't see Daniel Jones going off against this team and putting up more than 20. I can see him putting up 20 against the Commanders if they get some breaks and all that. But I'm almost to the point where that old mantra when I'm picking games, I never picked against Tom Brady after a certain amount of time. I don't pick against Patrick Mahomes now. I'm not quite there with Jaden Daniels, but I'm closer to that point than I've been with this team since Joe Gibbs was here the first time around. Like John was saying, I've yet to see this Dan Quinn team come out flat. I've yet to see Jaden Daniels play a game that looks like, oh, there's the rookie. You know, who saw that coming? He'll be healthier in this game than he was against the Bears. I think we'll protect him all week. I don't think he'll practice Wednesday or Thursday probably, because they're going to try to get him right where they can RPO with him and they can run him again and make the Giants defend sideline to sideline and line of scrimmage to the end zone on every play. I think they hang with us because it's a division game and they're not a bad football team. I just don't think that if the Commanders team we've seen the last few weeks shows up, I don't think the Giants can hang with them. So I know we haven't done scores yet, but I'm kind of picturing this like a 27-17 kind of game that might not be that close.
Well, we can jump right into that, I guess. That makes sense. So I heard from everybody else. Tony, what are you feeling, and what's your prediction?
Prediction wise, I'm gonna go 30-20. Commanders win. I think the Giants will hang around for a while, and then in the second half we pull away and make it evident who the clearly better team is. So that's what I'm gonna go with for this week.
All right. What do you think, Paul?
Oh my gosh. To me, this feels like the type of game where you reintegrate and reestablish Brian Robinson. He's put up good numbers. He hasn't put up a 100-yard rushing game since I think the Cardinals game. Given the fact that Jaden Daniels might be a bit banged up, and we asked a lot of him last week versus the Bears, I feel like this is the type of game where you allow your running backs to do the job type thing. And I really want to see them establish Brian Robinson this week. I think we're going to do that. And it's not going to be a pretty or exciting game. Just one of those old-fashioned NFC East type of battles. And I'm very hesitant in saying this, given the fact that we've come off a huge emotional high. But I think that we're going to squeeze one out. And I know it's the Meadowlands and all that, but I'm going to say Washington 20-17 in an ugly NFC East affair.
All right, I'll follow you, just so I don't always make myself go last. I think this game is going to be closer than what people are expecting. I think we should win this game comfortably. I think we have a reason to win this game comfortably. But I think because it's a divisional game, it's the Giants, and we've already beat them once, it's going to be a lot more difficult than people want to believe. But I think we're still the better football team, which we haven't really been able to say unequivocally for a long time. Maybe a late pull away. Final score is going to be 27. Washington 27. Giants. We're going 19. Something a little funky going on with a 2-point conversion late from them to try to pull within. I don't know how you get to 19. We can use your imagination. But Brother Mark.
Sounds like an NFC East score. I like it.
What do you got, Brother Mark?
I got us 27-17. It feels like a 10-point game to me. I just have gotten to the point after 8 weeks and watching this quarterback that I think we're seeing what we've talked about. God knows I've talked about it enough to make people sick. But when you have that franchise guy, everything changes. The defense plays better. Special teams play better. The coaches coach better. We keep hearing it from the sidelines, right? It's different with 5. The players are all saying it's great to have 5 on our side. We've got that guy, and to me, even in a close division game, and the Giants aren't a bad football team. They gave Pittsburgh everything they could handle last night, and Pittsburgh was better. I think the Giants will give us plenty of competition on Sunday. I think the Commanders are better. Until I see otherwise from this team and otherwise from this quarterback, I'm not betting against them. I got us by 10, 27-17.
Brother John, what do you got, man?
So I'm looking at. I talked about how anemic the Giants' offense was. I'm looking more at at our offense, and I think they have a pretty decent passing offense. A passing defense. They're eighth in yards and 9th in scoring against the pass, but they're not very good against the rush. They're 27th in the league in yards, giving up yards on the rush. So I think the way we beat them is we pound the rock. And although I keep saying that, and I think Cliff Kingsbury doesn't like to go out there and do air raid, and he doesn't like to go out there and run it 45 or 50 times a game. He always mixes it up. So, but I would like to see them go more rush heavy this time, because I think the Giants are more susceptible to that. And the other thing I think that's going to be a big factor is we weren't particularly good on third down last Sunday. And after setting records on third down conversions, they are 7th in the league against teams on third down, which is kind of an outlier for them, right? So they pass block they pass cover pretty well, and they're pretty darn good on third down, 7th in the league. So we got to pound the rock, and we got to be better on third down, so that we can, because I think we're the better team, and we should win whether we're on the road or not. And I kind of see it like Mark. I'm calling it 31-21 Washington.
31-21. I love it.
Let me throw a little love at my son Kyle, who came up from Florida to watch this game with us, and he was talking. I was driving into the airport this morning to fly back to Florida, and he was talking about the Giants' defensive line, their front seven, and giving them respect. And I agree. I agree with him. I watched their game against the Steelers. That front seven of the Giants is legit, and they will be coming after us, and they will make the run tough, and they will get in Jaden's face. What I don't think they can do is contain Jaden's legs if he's right in terms of moving around to throw and in going downfield. I think but that, to me, that's sort of the key to this game is if the Giants have one superpower, it's their front seven. I agree with him wholeheartedly on that, and I think that's the key. Watch that early, how we plan to block them up on pass plays and whether we're able to influence them on the run and start getting some positive stuff early. Maybe wear them out with the tempo stuff that we like to do. That's what I'll be watching most closely of anything in this game is how our OL and Cliff deal with that front seven from New York.
And this is the first time we've faced an opponent for the second time. So we're going to kind of get to see what Quinn and Kingsbury and Joe Witt Jr., what they can do with what they saw in the first matchup, and see how it goes the second time around. So I'm really excited to see that.
All right. Well, boys, as we wrap things up, I will pose a question, and we don't have to get too deep into the weeds on particulars here, but I think I know the answer. Are we buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? Because that is looming very quickly. Question. And I think that's going to be a big factor in the next 10 weeks of the season.
Oh, well,
what do you think, John? Buyers or sellers, John?
I don't think they're going to do a thing. How about that?
Tony?
I think they'll be buyers. It might not be a huge name, but I think they might make a couple moves, or just not the huge splash.
What about you, Bart?
I don't think we're sellers. I think if we are buyers, it's going to be because Adam Peters thinks that he can bring in one or two things. He can bring in a serious blue chipper and know that he's going to have like a young veteran for the next 5 years, and you can sign him without giving up too much capital, either probably at corner or at edge. I kind of doubt that. I would not be surprised at all if they add one or two guys who are mid-level young veterans to help us at those positions where you don't have to give up a whole lot of draft capital. I think at 6-2 and maybe 7-2, if things go right, you could make a strong argument that maybe we're playing for this year up to a point. I don't think Adam's going to mortgage the future, but at 6-2, I can, if I'm him, I'm tempted to add a couple of pieces that might extend our run into just late December and January.
Paul, what do you think? Buyers or sellers?
Microphone, brother.
Thank you. Sorry, Mark. We are not buyers. We are not sellers either. This entire season has been found money. We've already surpassed our win total from last season by 2, and we have a huge stretch of games still to go here. I say you stay true to the process.
I will tend to agree, but I think I'm going to lean with Tony. I think we are going to be actively pursuing adding a piece or two, but I don't think it's going to be like Myles Garrett or something crazy. Oh,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I think it's gonna be a guy that everybody looks around and says, "What? Noah Brown?" And then in week 10 he has some play that everybody's like, "Noah Brown and Adam Peterson's the guy." You know, like it's
Yeah.
gonna be one of those things that that we all kind of look around and say, "Okay," and you know, maybe he'll compete for playing time, and then there might be some contribution at some point. But at the end of the day, I think I can speak for all of us to say that, you know what, I think either way, whatever happens, they know what they're doing. And I think we're all going to look at it with the glasses of, instead of that's a terrible idea, to now becoming, all right, let's see what he knows, because obviously he's got confidence and these guys know what the hell they're doing, which is a breath of fresh air.
And the scary thing for the rest of the NFL is this year is the 1 year. This is the lowest talent that Jaden Daniels will ever play with on this. The lowest talent he'll ever play with.
Absolutely.
Tony, I'm glad to hear you say that. I say that over and over and over. I keep looking forward to a year or two. I don't want to miss out on the journey part of this, what we're seeing every week. But if you project a couple of years down the road where a competent, more than competent front office has put together some playmakers at the line and the linebackers at cornerbacks, some more talent out wide on offense and playmakers, it's really, really a lot of fun to project forward a couple of years with this team based on what we've seen over the first 7 weeks here. 8 weeks.
Mark, you wear your hat like Dan Quinn. Now you're starting to talk like him, brother.
Well, why, thank you. The damn thing won't stay on straight. That's the problem.
He's like, I don't want to miss anything in the journey. It's like that is Dan.
That's right.
That's straight up Dan Quinn's.
Yeah,
Hey,
man,
now you just got to wear that for a few days and get a little burn right here, just so
Right?
you know.
Right? It's a little sorry about the reflection.
Well, fellas, I am so happy to say we've been going strong for a long time, this fan base, and a lot of the people on this chat have been together, and last night was kind of different, or 2 nights ago. Things feel a little different. So I got to say, I could not be more proud to share it with, you know, the handful of people that we have at bgobsession.com and in the group. And I'm so happy that I'm not saying we're out of it. I'm not saying we're out the other side, but to experience these kind of things, we've been through a lot of the dark ages. So to be able to do this and have these conversations and have fun with it, it's awesome to experience.
We can finally have nice things, man.
We may not be out the other side, Derek, but we can see it from here.
Yeah, it's October, and I'm not looking at the draft.
We're looking at playoff seeding, right? Well, right now we're number 2 in the NFC. It's like,
I don't yet have an alcohol problem.
So. I'm working on mine.
That's right.
You guys
rock,
man. I miss hanging with you guys live. You're doing
Right.
you're killing it.
Back to Bavaria.
That's right.
I'm out of here.
Well, if anybody listening or watching has made it this far, we really appreciate you. Please give us a like, a share, and a follow. Hook us up with all of that. Spread the word a little bit, and come join us at bgobsession.com. And as always, I'll say it again. That'll do, pigs. That'll do.